We haven't heard from Ron, but Ron told me a very interesting story earlier on.
Yeah, we lived at Beachfield in Trinity during the occupation, in the farmhouse, and the main house next door was where Peter Krill, the bailiff, had lived. And during the war, was a family Lemaire who lived there. Mr. Lemaire was local, his wife was from Birmingham, and some of their children had been deported to camps in Germany. And around the main house was what I call a moat, because there were cellars, and he always kept 2 pigs there. Well, to get to the main house, there was 2 driveways, and if you saw the Germans coming down one driveway to search the house, he'd get us kids together to chase the pigs the other side of the house. And he says, when I called to you, he says, you chase them the other way. So when the Germans went to that side of the house, we had to pull the pigs the other side. And he was a baker by trade, Mr. Lemon. He had to work for the Germans in a bakehouse at St Albans. And I can always remember one night, he'd always come back in the middle of the night. And this particular night, he came back with a bag of sugar on his handlebars, and there was a little hole, and he left a trail. He left a trail of white. But he never got caught, so for some unknown reason, I don't know why.
Perhaps they liked his baking.
Well, yeah.
So, anyone want to follow that then?
Yeah, again, following on from Ron, I mean, I was at Green Fields, just down the road from the parish hall here, and the Germans would, I think every month, come round and count the animals, including chickens, as Ruth mentioned. And my dad's job was to sort of muster them by calling putty putty and throwing a few grains around. The chickens would gather in the yard, and the German officer would start counting them. And we had neighbours who lived in the cottage, and the 2 girls were slightly older than I. And we'd been trained by my father to become a car. And then we were motoring down the yard, straight through the chickens who'd fly all over the place, and this poor chap trying to count. And eventually he would give up, as my dad would pretend to threaten us as children for disturbing the chickens, but the German was a considerate sort of guy, and he'd say, no, don't admonish the kids. You said 17? And then he'd put down 17.
Anyone going to follow on?
Well, I'll tell you another one of the Germans.
Go on, Claire.
I was, one summer evening, I was just walking down towards Zion. I was going to visit a friend, and a German officer on a bike, he got off his bike and he asked me the way to somewhere at Montalabé. I knew exactly where it was, so I thought I can tell him. And at school we had to learn German, as you know, if you're over 12-year-old or something. And I knew left and right, I think, I can't remember it now, in German. And I told him, because I knew exactly the house he was going to, and I sort of went down there and things. And then, to this day, if you say it's on the right-hand side, I think, right, I write in my right hand. That's my left, that's right. Do you know, after he'd gone, I thought, I think I've told him all wrong. So instead of going to my friends, I ran back home before he could turn round and come after me. I thought he was going to kill me or something. I was really frightened.
You want to have a go?
Yeah, well, one thing that comes to mind is that the Germans decided to build a railway from the harbour to Goree, and they were laying the track from the Mount Bingham of Depart. When they got to, does everybody know where Green Road is?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when they got to Green Road, they couldn't go any further along. They had to come inland a little bit. So there was a line of shops on the corner there, and a line of houses, and they just went straight away through the wall, through the shops and the houses, the back gardens of the houses. They just bulldozed right away through the back gardens, and they were taking the railway up an avenue, Coastlands Avenue, where my parents had their house, and they got up to where the house was, and they decided that they didn't have enough space to put their railway, so my parents had a visit from the Germans, who just said, well, we're going to knock your house down, because we're going to demolish it so that we can come through. But the day after, they decided they were going to widen the avenue on the other side, which spared the house. And they went right the way through, right up to the FB Fields, and up through the FB Fields and onward to Gorey. But that while they were building this railway, it was being done by slave labour, the Russians, and they were in a hell of a state, these poor blokes. And being a kid, I used to hang on the wall and watch them. And on this particular day, one of the Russians, or the slave labour, he was so hungry he wanted to, have we got any food, and we didn't have much food anyway, but I apparently went into the house and got something, and came out and threw it to him, and he picked it up off the ground, put it in his mouth, and as he was eating it, this German sentry came up behind him, and he, with the butt of his rifle, he clobbered into the ground, and he was unconscious, the poor blighter. And he said to me, he said, but I was gone, I didn't hang around. And it was the next day, my parents got a visit from an officer who said, look, can you keep control of your son? If you can't control your son, we're going to deport you as a family. So she made sure that in future, while they were anywhere near our house, that I was locked in